use cases of Web3 through DePIN.
This episode is sponsored by Peak, the Layer 1 blockchain purpose-built to power DePINs. Peak is about to launch. Check their website at peak.network right now. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub here. Today we're interviewing Robin, co-founder of Wingbits, a company revolutionizing flight tracking with blockchain technology. Wingbits aim to aggregate global flight data to develop advanced models such as delay predictions, algorithms, enhance aviation efficiency and predictability, and much, much more. Well, Robin, thanks so much for joining the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start by you introduce yourself, your background, and your role at Wingbits.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Robin, co-founder of Wingbits. My role at Wingbits is CEO, and my background is a little bit all over the place. Started my career as a professional golfer, actually, back in the day. So I moved to the US quite early. I was 17. Played professionally for 3.5 years before I kind of got onto the entrepreneurial route. So started 6 companies while living there with an investment firm, and I had a couple of companies of my own. The latest one I exited 2021 before moving back to Sweden and worked in the beverage industry, actually. I was a CEO for a brief stint before moving to a fintech company called Klarna, where I managed the commercial teams in Sweden. And then you just kind of got sick of it, quit, didn't really have a plan, joined an accelerator called Antler, and that's where I met Alex, my co-founder, who he also was at Klarna, but in the engineering department, so wasn't allowed down there. And he had the idea for Wingbits, and here we are. So yeah, it's a little bit odd background, I think, for the space.
Such a interesting background, right? So many different experiences, from like golfing to like beer or like alcohol or beverages. I don't know which kind exactly was it, but I can imagine something like that. And then why Wingbits? Like you said, the CTO had an idea about Wingbits. What is the problem that you guys are trying to solve with that?
Yeah, so Alex came into Antler with the idea, and I really liked Alex. We clicked really well. So that was obviously the most important thing. But, I've been in and out of crypto for the last few years. And when he explained the problem to me of how flight tracking is done today, it's all volunteer based. They get really nothing in return for the data they provide. And it's a $22 billion industry. So these companies are just making a ton of money. But the existing models also create a lot of problems with the networks. And I just thought this was such a perfect use case for the blockchain. And I really saw how we could use this model to, one, get over the cold start problem. Obviously, you want to reward people on a global scale, way easier over the blockchain. Also, you can actually have a lot more utility and not just a transactional relationship when you use blockchain. So it was just super interesting. And so far, the model has proven to be, pretty great, honestly. I really think the DePIN space will kind of serve to change the perception that people have on Web3, because it's still pretty negative out there. But I think using this model, we can actually create a long-term sustainable business with the community, and they, get fairly rewarded for it. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think I like to say that DePIN is the narrative that's really blockchain was made for, right? Like fintech, DeFi, etc. It's very helpful and changes a lot of the things, the way you interact with money, but the way they interact with the world, right? Like DePIN is just not one functionality. There's like, Wingbits is one. There's like HiveMapper, there's Demo, there's Helium. There's so many different areas, and everything has a common like blockchain. But blockchain is not the main thing, right? You guys are like trying to fix, a lot of this, the flight tracking. That the blockchain is actually just one part of it. It's not the main thing. I think that's also an important thing, and I really like DePIN for that. You're saying that like when I go to Flight Radar or some website to track flights, all this tracking is all done by volunteers. And where does this data usually come from?
Yeah, so it's all enthusiasts and volunteers in the existing networks, and mainly they do it because they just love airplanes. So flight tracking is actually really fun because you host your antenna and you can actually see like what planes you're catching with your antenna, so it makes it kind of tangible. You see what you're doing. The data that's being captured is called ADSB, and it's actually regulated now in most parts of the world, where any airplane flying through civilian airspace has to transmit this data twice per second. And it offers like very granular information such as flight identifier, altitude, speed, heading. and those sort of things. And when you get this data crowdsourced from all over the world and you aggregate it, it creates a really, really nice overview of the airspace. So yeah, so you just have people hosting these antennas similar to the DePIN model, except they get really nothing for it more than access to the platform.
Yeah, I think that's actually how I got started in IoT as well. Back in 2015, there was a project called the Things Network that you deploy this IoT network in your. I was living in Berlin then, and it was the same thing. It was like I put this IoT this antenna, and then people start using to transmit data. But then there was no incentive in the end. Like, it's not my priority to keep this thing up, and I had to move. I didn't even turn on again until I learned about Helium, and okay, there's an incentive for me to keep this thing up. Maybe not a lot of money, maybe, just beer money at the end of the month, but it's still pretty cool. So I think shifting that to aviation, I think is super, super interesting. How many volunteers around the world do you see now?
Well, if you look at it in the existing networks, I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of flight enthusiasts. These other networks have about 40,000 antennas. But the thing is with these antennas is that they cover a really large area. So if you have a perfectly placed antenna, you really don't need that many. And what happens is, if you don't have a model that helps optimizing spread, like what we do is we lock the area so just one antenna per area to avoid like oversaturation. You really only need 3,000 or 4,000 optimally placed to get global coverage. Then obviously you want redundancy and those sort of things. But if you have 10, 15,000 antennas well placed, you have global coverage with enough redundancy, and you avoid just having massive amounts of duplicated data in maybe like one city, which you just have to clean up anyway. So it just adds to the latency. But, with the model, we really see that with a clear incentive that incentivizes the right type of behavior, it not only makes the network more efficient from a latency perspective, but it also helps you kind of steer coverage a little bit, which really is good for a customer, because the existing networks, they just have to kind of wait for an enthusiast to pop up in an area, where if you use the DePIN model, we haven't done this yet, but it's on the roadmap. I mean, you can release bounty areas or higher rewards regionally and those sort of things. And that works really well and is very unique to the DePIN space versus the traditional space that just kind of wait.
Yeah, absolutely. I see like GeoNet has the super hexes. I think HiveMapper have the bursts. Like they really want some coverage in some specific region. You put some carrot in there, and then someone's going to go and deploy that infrastructure, right?
But imagine how cool it is, right? You're a customer, a traditional Web2 customer in the space. You've been used to this traditional model. All of a sudden, you can go to your data supplier and say, hey, we really need coverage in this specific area. And the supplier is actually able to somehow make that happen. Like, that's something that's never happened, and they're not used to it. So it really allows you to provide such a better buyer experience.
Yeah, no, 100%. And how did you, let's go a little bit of a timeline of Wingbits, because I remember, I think it was Nick Hawks actually mentioned about the project a long time ago. There was you have to go to Amazon and buy this dongle that you put on the Raspberry Pi, and then you put it on your balcony or in a rooftop. What is the timeline? Okay, you guys started. What was the first hardware? What are you guys going next?
Alex had an idea, and he started with an MVP. I think it was like June or July of 2023. He started thinking about it and tinkering. We launched a beta on November 2nd, 2023. And we started with a similar model to the other networks. It's kind of a build your own, mainly Raspberry Pi based network, where you add a SDR dongle that you buy from Amazon and then an antenna, and you just install our software. So we are currently on that model, but we are capping that model at 2,000 devices. And all those devices will have to add a security dongle that is being released this fall. And that's simply to provide a GPS location and being able to cryptographically sign the data. After those 2,000, that cap is reached, we're moving to approved hardware only. And the first step is the device that we're releasing with GeoNet. So over time, we will add more approved manufacturers, but the partnership with GeoNet was really exciting. We love GeoNet. They're an amazing project, and we have good synergy with what they're doing. So that's the first step. So we're going to approved hardware only in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Will I be able to still build my own and just buy this key signer or something like that, right?
Oh, for now, there's about 200 spots left. But after we reach 2,000 of these devices, you can no longer do that. So What we wanted to do with that is that all the people that joined and helped us get to where we are, we were grandfathering all of them in. They get a free dongle. The people that joined after we made an announcement, they have to buy the dongle. It's $50, so it's not super expensive. But we just wanted to make sure to show that we really appreciated, the initial early adopters that helped us get to where we are. But we do need to secure the network because one, to protect the network from cheating and spoofing, but it also really enhances the commercial value of the data because no other network out there can provide this type of validation. So it helps us also monetize the data.
Yeah, no, it's super important. I say, like, whenever there's money, there's going to be people trying to cheat it and find ways to make more money, right? So it's a cat and mouse always trying to fix that. And yeah, it needs to be done for sure. Can you elaborate a little bit on the tokenomics as well? Like, let's say I bought a device, I put it on my rooftop. How does that, like, I get paid every day, every week? How does the tokenomics work on Wingbits?
Yeah, so right now we're in Testnet. So we are distributing tokens on Testnet. But essentially what we did is we use Uber's hexagon system to kind of split the entire globe into hexagons. And each hexagon has a set number of daily rewards. So if you host your station or antenna, whatever percentage of data you contribute in that specific area, you earn that percentage of the daily token rewards. So we have a base reward and then we have a bonus reward as well. The bonus reward is given to the top 5 providers in each hexagon, and they're actually unlocked as more people join. So if it's only you, obviously you unlock 1 out of 5 of the bonus, and then when 5 people are joined, you get unlock the full bonus rewards, so to speak.
One question that I was thinking, like you were mentioning, like all these flight radar websites that use aggregate this data. What other use cases do you see using this data for? Because imagine it can just be people, I'm tracking my girlfriend coming back home, right?
No, you have both. Obviously, flight radar is more of a B2C case. So they make most of their money from subscription and content, but they also do some B2B. And then you have FlightAware in the US, which is B2B only, and they do over $100 million revenue now. But so there's actually quite a lot of use cases because pretty much the entire aviation segment actually uses this data for anything from crew management to kind of analyze and see, like, how should we schedule the crews, gate slot optimization to see how much of a buffer do you need because you pay for the amount of time you have your slot. Logistics providers that use air freight, if they don't have their own planes especially, need to monitor where are the packages around Earth. For insurance purposes, there's actually a signal in this data that says wheels up or wheels down. That's the data point you use to determine if someone should get a refund or not due to delay. You can use this data to monitor, like, what's the amount of planes at an airport at a specific time to see what's the total exposure if a natural disaster were to happen at this airport. So from an asset management point of view, actually a really big use case now is delay prediction, because flight delays cost the industry over $70 billion in 2022. And now with the rise of AI, higher compute power, there's more advanced use cases that are possible on this data. So that's a massive use case for it. And then also fleet, where is your fleet? Where's my plane right now? So airplane lessors monitor the fleet, how far they fly, where they fly, because certain areas like Middle East, more sand in the air. So you need to do more maintenance, so then you can do predictive maintenance. So it's a million use cases.
Wow, no, yeah, that's impressive. And I think what baffles me is that all this data come from people doing this for free.
But it's an interesting space because most people you talk to, they just assume that all this data is coming from like FAA or Eurocontrol, or like the government handles this data. If you look at an airport, they have no clue what's going on if it's more than 30 minutes from the airport, because that's the range of the radar. And then they actually use one of these services to monitor airspace to see what planes are coming in, what's going on. Is there is there any odd movements? Let's say a airport has to shut down because there's a power outage. Right now, like, all the planes have like a backup airport, so they divert. But right now it's a very manual process of they call it in and say, hey, this is happening. Whereas with this data, you could easily kind of build some notifications like, hey, based on historical data, now it's very odd movements up into space. And you can notify the the people that need to know and get it to be more proactive instead of so reactive.
Yeah. So I guess FlightAware, you said the company in the US, probably going to have some trouble in the future.
I mean, we have a bit to go. They're much bigger. They're really good. They were actually purchased by Collins Aerospace 2.5 years ago. So we've seen since this data was regulated in 2020, both competitors on the European and American side, their revenues increased 100 to 200% because the demand of the data has increased significantly.
What I can imagine happening, it's that slowly a lot of these people is going to start hearing about Wingbits and they're going to start shifting over, right? Like if I'm already providing this information, might as well make some money out of that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was one of the things we thought about when, switching the hardware strategy, because going with proprietary hardware where they would have to purchase it, in the future they can no longer just share data. Will probably make that growth slightly slower, but it's actually what's been really good for us is bringing new community into flight tracking. So we're bringing Web3 into flight tracking. Most of the people in our network didn't do flight tracking before, but I think as we prove the concept over time and people see that, it's not a scam just because there's a crypto aspect to it, it's going to be really cool to see that then we can attract the flight tracking enthusiasts into Web3 and create a higher rate of adoption. So I think it's good for both flight tracking industry, but it's also good for the Web3 segment.
I love the fact that you guys are going to bring a lot of new people into Web3, right? People who like they like the flights, they like, a Microsoft flight simulator, etc. And then they're going to get into crypto because of that.
Yeah, we already see, about 15%, probably 10 to 15 of our community, they come from other flight tracking networks and they weren't in crypto before. So that is super, super exciting. And that's just going to accelerate the more we prove our case that, we work with real customers and we are creating a great business. So it's going to be really exciting to see.
Why have more than 50 DePINs choose to build on Peak? It's super fast, scalable, low cost, and offers builders a ready-to-deploy DePIN backend. Peak is also home to the fastest growing DePIN ecosystem in Web3, with lots of relevant enterprise, more than 1 million vehicles and devices, and over 50 DePIN across 18 industries. And that's just the beginning. Building a DePIN? Peak's DePIN Grant program is focused on giving you everything you need to launch record breakers in record time. The Peak network in Tokyo will launch later this month. Check out Peak's channels for more details. You can find links in the description of this podcast. What are the main difficulties that you guys have right now on trying to onboard those people and grow?
I think, so far it's been all organic. And that's been really good because I feel like the community is awesome. It's people that are very interested in the tech side of things, and it's been a nice growth. I think the difficulty for any DePIN project now is that there's a lot of noise in the space because the DePIN space is very hyped. Everyone that has any type of project will kind of say it's a DePIN project, similar to the AI hype. So breaking through the noise, I think, is a challenge for all projects. And, our background is not Web3. So we're very much like, let's build a good business. And I don't know if that could hurt us at times because we're not so hypey, so to speak, because we want to build something great. We don't want to build something that's just hype really quick and then dies out. We want to change the way people view Web3 projects. So that's probably difficult or hurts us maybe a little bit in terms of growth.
Yeah, no, it's really funny because this is exactly what I was picking. I was having lunch with my girlfriend yesterday somewhere in Lisbon by the ocean, and we're discussing the crypto market and then DePIN market, and we said exactly the same words that you said, right? A lot of projects that we see in crypto nowadays, sometimes they're not very good projects, but they're very good at marketing and creating this hype, while DePIN founders are usually people that want to build a solid business. And sometimes it hurts on the growth, right? Because you're focused on trying to build something real and something that actually is going to, has a steady growth over time, while some other people are building something just for the now. Let's try to get as much as we can right now and then, sell it or dump it and then move to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think, over time, the space needs long-term sustainable projects to for people to kind of change their view on it. And I think you just doing the right thing over time works out. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're trying to do as well. As like first, Hotspotty, our DePIN hub is trying to building like a framework to really verify if the projects actually that they're building something sustainable and not just like, oh, DePIN is hot, let me just put DePIN on my landing page and try to leverage that. So that's something that we've been talking a lot all the time. And it's like, okay, we don't want to list any project on the platform just because they're DePIN or I would say like if you put like DePIN plus AI plus DK, it's a big red flag for me. Everybody's trying to do something like that and try to get funding. And there's another problem, right? Like I think a lot of times VCs, they look what's in the hype. They don't really look at because they need to return their fund. There's a lot of things that you really need to look for venture capital that actually believe in what you're doing and also is with you in the long term. So you guys build a lot from I think last year, and now going to have your own hardware in partnership with GeoNet, plus then other manufacturers come in. Well, how do you see the project growing to the next, let's say, 5 years?
I mean, so right now we're really focused on like Mainnet, because we want to hit that later this year. That's quite an important milestone for us. I mean, right now we're adding about 7 new stations per day organically. So we do foresee that increasing over time as we prove the concept. I think we're in a really good position to reach global coverage during next year, but because it just put us in a little bit unique position, I guess, that we can target both the Web3 and Web2 world in terms of community. So that makes it a little less dependent also on just growing during a bull market. We can also grow in a bear market because it's a different community. So on the phases I'm envisioning now is like we're heavily B2B focused right now. We have an amazing pipeline of customers. We have some pilots where we really validated the data and the value of the data at different stages. So our goal is Mainnet and then become profitable as a business. Honestly, I think we can do it not in not too long of a time. And then we really need to spend some extra effort on making the platform extremely fun, engaging, and give a lot of value to the community in form of what can they do on the platform. So we're definitely gonna make it much better than this right now. It's we launched a new landing page. It's just step one of many. We're gonna spend a lot of effort on the UX UI improvements, new features on the site that allows you to filter different things, create things on top of our data and all those sort of things. So yeah, I think 5-year plan is a long time, but I think now Mainnet, sales, and platform improvements for the community. Those are the main 3 things we're focusing on.
Yeah, I love your post on LinkedIn the other day that you could see the map of the flights coming in and out.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah. So we're doing we're gonna do an airport of the week now. Every Thursday or Friday. We're gonna just do some data visualization of different airports. I think we have 201 airports now where we have some good ground level coverage, and it's just really cool to visualize what the data is actually, what it looks like, So I like it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I'll imagine in the near future you're gonna have like a Microsoft Flight Simulator using the data from you guys so that you can like actually see real planes flying while you like piloting your simulator. I think that would be really, really cool.
I actually know from one of our advisors that they have been working on this before, incorporating, this into Microsoft Flight Simulator. A lot of airlines, they will use this data to incorporate into their own apps to show the travelers where the plane is and stuff. So yeah, it can be used for a lot of fun things.
Yeah, no, I think it would be cool. I'd love to, instead of going to Flight Radar, go to Wingbits website to see how are the flights, and you guys going to dominate this whole market, hopefully, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, again, we're not there yet, but like we're going to incorporate the origin and final destination into our map and allow you to filter on where your plane is, if it's delayed or not. And so it's going to be really nice and helpful in terms of like if you're a traveler. I mean, one thing that we've been thinking about too is if you're an inexperienced traveler, you really don't know how much layover you need at a specific airport if you're flying across the world and have 2 layovers. Because the way they measure right now is just how long does it take to walk from one end of the airport to the other. They don't take in consideration your average delay and average wait times and all this stuff. So that's one thing we thought about maybe doing later, is allow you to check before you book the ticket. Like, hey, what's the likelihood of you missing this layover? Maybe you need more time. And so those are the things we're trying to collect feedback on, like what would be most helpful for like a traveler or community member to actually have on the platform.
It's a very exciting roadmap, right? Like, I think something really interesting to work on. Do you have anything that you like to tell our listeners that are listening now to the podcast, or where can they know more about the project, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think this fall is actually going to be full of very, very exciting things. You know, we just announced that we raised $3.5 million back in June. Had two amazing investors, so co-led by Boardless Capital and Tribe Capitals, and some strategic angels. So that's allowed us to expand the team. So we're going to be able to deliver features and improvements a lot faster. So that's super fun. But yeah, definitely join our Discord, follow us on Twitter. And if you want to take one of the last few spots with the build your own hardware, I think there's about 150 spots left now. Make sure to grab one.
I'm going to do one right after this call as well. To make sure that, but I think my hacks are already booked here. I may have to wait until I go to Brazil and have my mom's place or something like that. But
that's actually one cool thing we're seeing is people finding hosts all around the world. I mean, people from the US are hosting in Africa and stuff, and that's it's amazing to see.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, well, I'm gonna definitely put all the links. Make sure to, if you're listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube, make sure to go to DePINHub.io and look for the Wingbits project in there. There's all the information about the project, all the social links, like there's also social traction, Twitter or X, blog, etc. Everything's in there. Oh, thanks so much for joining the podcast, Robin. I think it was very insightful. I really enjoyed it. I'm super bullish on Wingbits. I think there's a long way to go, but I think the progress so far is amazing. And
thank you so much.
Really exciting. Thanks so much. Have a great week, everybody, or have a great weekend, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast. And see you in the next one. Cheers, man.